on things like bone densities and certainly all kinds of biological samples being taken that the crew member, there are research teams, human research teams on the ground will be able to analyze when it gets back. Pete, anything else to?
Sure. Yeah. This is a good windfall for us as well. Peggy was already a subject in the fluid shifts experiment, which was one of the key experiments in the one-year mission that Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko did. So with her duration now increased, she's now on the scale, the same scale that they were, not quite as long, but we are continuing her fluid shifts sessions. She's also continuing some of the other science that applied to the mission, behavioral, food surveys, all of her biomedical data, biomedical research can be applied as well.
Do you have to have a Russian partner with this, or could you just send up an American all solo, or two Americans, or a European? I mean, why do you need to have the Russians sign off on this?
Well, certainly during the periods of Soyuz, that would be the case, and that's that's for near term. That's where we've looked. I don't know if we really had the discussions once we get into, I'll say, routine services with our commercial crew programs. If we can do that solely on our side, I would imagine that answer would be yes. But I have not been involved in those discussions. But I can't think of anything that would preclude us in that regard.
And we'll stand in front of the room.
Chris Gebhardt with NASA Spaceflight, with one for Hans and I believe one for Dan. For Hans, with only 1 day in a window before having to stand down for a week, can you talk a little bit about what the teams did to fix the computer issue that stopped the Intelsat countdown at T-minus 9 seconds twice? And for Dan, is it the science experiments on Dragon, or is it the need to catalog the satellites that are being deployed during the Russian EVA? For why Dragon only has a day. Basically, why can't Dragon just launch and loiter behind the ISS? Thank you.
So regarding what stopped the Intelsat launch, like 9 minutes, I think, or 9 seconds rather, for T0, those computers are ground computers, and they're driven by a certain script that checks for values, and we clip those values in this case, and so those are things that are relatively easy to fix. And had been fixed basically the day later, right away, and tested again. I don't anticipate that to be a problem, although I shouldn't really say this. Knock on wood. I'm actually, when I think about what I'm worried the most, is actually weather right now. The weather is right on the. I know it's 30%, but those percentages. Change in the hour before, and even if you stuck within those 30%, that be not good. Having said that, I think everything else looks pretty good. As Dan said, late load should get going by now, and we double checked everything, triple checked everything. Among those checks is also another check for those abort files, of course. And so I'm cautiously optimistic, I would say, for this one launch opportunity, and better one than none, I would say, and we'll see how it goes.
And Chris, as far as the next launch attempts, right? So if we couldn't get off tomorrow, we had to go on Tuesday. That would line up the birthing day on the same day as the Russian EVA. So that was out of the question. We pursued that with our Russian colleagues, and then you hit it, right? Then the Russians on that EVA deploy 5 satellites, and we do require good tracking on those, so we know where to go fly Dragon, help SpaceX fly Dragon when it's approaching into the ISS. So that's a big deal for us, obviously. Could we loiter? Yes, at the expense of losing research, because they time, their samples have X amount of hours before they need to be offloaded, brought onto the station. And so we looked at that as well. And the loiter duration once around, bringing it back in, just didn't solve didn't close on some of the research parameters that we had. So then you get into past that, you have TDRS on the 18th with the backup day on the 19th, and so that's kind of when at least when we look at it, and at least from a compatibility with the station, that seems to play okay. Whether we can get range, SpaceX, I mean, there's a lot of things to do there. But as far as the station program, we look like those are acceptable days.
Bill Jelen for We Report Space for Hans. The half fairing that you caught, recovered at sea. Have you started processing that and learned anything from that?